Yeah, my name is Athabile Nonxuba, a rural boy from the village of Tsendani. I'm a student at the University of Cape Town, and an activist.
So what are your views on men are trash?
Yeah, I mean, as an activist, and as a fullist, how I understand men are trash. It's a provocative statement, but more so it's a clarion call to the atrocities that and all other bodies that are not necessarily men, that are suffering under the hands of men. But more importantly, it is, for me, men are trash is the statement to the entire world on how the dominance, on how that men have entitlement of men, to say, on how men have become so entitled to the world that they think that it can only be controlled and run by their rules on when they want to, but at the same time they can dominate whoever they want at whatever time they want, us as men, me myself excluded, So that's what I think, that when you say men are trash, and then there's a conversation that people say not all men, then they are taking it as they are individualizing the problem, because the issue of domination is not an individual issue, as much as one may not necessarily actively and every day consciously trying to dominate people, but then the system as a whole is intent that it benefits men in the society that we're living in, and the privilege is there. But at the same time, I think the clarion call is not new, because many people think that it's sparked by the recent incidents that happened to Karabo, Mukwena, the woman who recently died and was burned by a boyfriend, or Alexandra, the woman who was the Tips Group adopted but was a survivor. That sparked people's conscience, to talk about the conversation. But the conversation is old, really.
Yes.
It's been happening, back in the days, I think in the 80s, in London, for instance. If we take the feminist movement in London in the 80s, the likes of Linda Bellows, in London, they had a serious movement, and there was a serious statement there that says every man is a potential rapist, and the outcry, what you call fragile masculinity, from men. There's always that fragile masculinity that's I'm not a rapist and all that. But I mean, really, the statement trying to say to you that for every man that is on the street, to a woman, they have to be conscious of that, whatever man, because they don't know which man is going to rape them, which one is not going to rape them, and therefore the statement says every man is a potential rapist. I mean, for me, that is not different from the very same conversation on men are trash. So the statement has always been there, provocative statement, but trying to challenge the dominance of men in society. It's not necessarily about what they actually the actual killing right now necessarily, because violence is not only physical, because there's emotional violence and there's all sorts of violence. But people, I think, they are looking at the defense mode when they engage with the statement, with the movement. But another thing that people are forgetting is that the statement is not meant to please or to have a conversation that pleases anyone. But the statement, I think, in my own way, is that any form of protest and activity is meant to inconvenience somebody. So if it does not inconvenience you, then it's not a form of protest. Any protest must inconvenience someone, and in this case, it inconveniences men. And that's exactly, it means that it's done its job successfully as a movement, it's done its job successfully as a campaign trade. Whether being in Bishop Tutu, being a pastor, men still a trash, because he's still a trash, in that sense. Whether it's Bishop Mohopa, he's still a trash, whether my father is still a trash, because in their tradition, speaking of my father, they believe that men are in the high hierarchy. In the same, in Bishop Tutu believes in his church that men are the head and wives at the neck of the family. It is understood in a Christian understanding, and he upholds that that Bible and uphold that gospel. And in that sense, the statement applies to him as well. So I'm trying to put the live wires of how then men, that there's no man that is excused from the conversation that says men are trash. Fundamentally for me, it's a philosophical and political statement that speaks to the dominance of men, and that dominance of men in society allows men, or makes it easy for men to be able to perpetuate violence, being physically, emotionally, and as far because of that the society is dominated by men, then there's the constitution or institution that's supposed to hold accountable perpetrators. Then they fail the victims on the basis that the very same institutions are presided by the very same man. You know, you have a president who's been accused of rape, he presides over a country, therefore he has a minister who presides over all these institutions, but you have these ministers who are not in touch with the discourse on the ground, or are not necessarily women, or are not necessarily closer to victims, or are not necessarily understand. So the male dominance is still intact in society within the very same institutions are supposed to resolve or hold perpetrators accountable. So really it makes sense to say in such society, yes, that men are trash, you know. So I think the statement is broader than just men being a trash in a literal sense, but men being a trash in their own creation, in their own dominance in society.
But what do you think is the influence of hip-hop culture and mainstream media on the perpetuation of this very same movement?
I think, you know, pop culture, I mean, it's a very interesting scenario to study this phenomena in society of, you know, because in pop culture, you know, it portrays women as these exotic bodies, you know, that are nothing but sex objects. You know, you look in the music videos, people talk about beaches and whatever. But what's interesting for me, you know, is that the very same activists who are fighting against patriarchy, you know, very same activists who are fighting against all these notions of dominance, and you know, but they listen to the very same music. I mean, for me, that's very interesting. You know, it's a very interesting issue, and it then reminds me of when he speaks of decolonization of the mind, and also it reminds me of, I think, the decolonization project, where I think Baldwin, he summarized this thing of, you know, he captures the imagination when he says, to the white man, education is indoctrination, but to the black man, it is domination. You know, I think that our society, then, as much as it is not been decolonized, then it is almost impossible for people to be able to decolonize their minds as well. But what I think the pop culture, what it does interestingly, is far away from the fact that, apart from the fact that we the very same activities perpetuate the very same misery, but pop culture displays black bodies particularly, because I mean you hardly find white bodies in pop culture, you know, being displayed. But you find black bodies, and the history is very deep. Actually, you can take it back to Saturday Batman on how white people will find black bodies exotic. You can take it to Nicki Minaj, you know, on how she's naked in that advert for advertising cars nakedly for a white company and all that. That has always been a black body of a woman has always been found exotic in a white media or white world, you know. And therefore, the black man is then able to learn that, and then it is taken that was the black man has became, as Yuma Sagala would say, a bad imitation of a white man. You know, we became a bad imitation of our oppressors. You know, so you then become your own white man in your own creation, but then you become a shadow of a former self. In conclusion, that's what happens. And then the pop culture, you perpetuate that misery, and then you display these exotic bodies, you know, because that's how they are found in a white world. That black bodies are just exotic, you know, creatures that must be studied not just as human beings but as ideologies, you know, and as fascinating objects, basically, you know. And it perpetuates then, because it invalidates the value of women in society, because I mean, they are displayed as dolls and all these things. Then how do you then take them seriously? That's why it makes it hard in Africa to have a president who's a woman. That's why it makes it hard in Africa to have vice chancellors who are women. It's hard for this country that we are in to have deans who are women, or any position in fact that is powerful. If then you have a woman, it must be 1 in 5. There must always be a space to control a black woman. I think that pop culture is a role in contribution on how it devalues the woman in society. I think that's it perpetuates that misery a lot.
You draw a lot on literature and Ngugi and Baldwin.
Yeah.
What do you then think is the influence of literature on the filtration of the perpetuation of men are trash?
I mean, literature is very important. I mean, it's a center of everything. The readers today are leaders tomorrow. You know, there is no solution outside of literature. I think that the society, particularly in Africa, that it finds in a situation that it is in now based on the fact that it's disconnected from literature. It is not engaged with literature. Nobody reads bell hooks. Nobody reads intersectionality. Nobody knows gender and sexuality, but only based on social constructs. So we need to deconstruct that. I mean, the role of the libraries, I think, is very fundamental, because that's where the answers are. And if we are having this conversation and thinking that this is the first people to talk about conversation, then we have a good problem in our hands. Because we must then go engage with the dead. The dead live in the library. That's where the conversations are. Then you must then go to the libraries and engage with the dead, and then be able to find social. Because we are not the first generation to be here. So literature is very fundamental.